Within the story of Plaything itself, Kang Muhan once mentioned the story of Taejong Yi Bangwon. In that story, Taejong's in-laws did the dirty work that allowed Taejong to become the king of South Korea. But after he ascended the throne, his in-laws became inconvenient people for Taejong and were summarily eliminated. And in 2025, Kanghyun is retelling that story. He gathered close associates to create a network of crimes and corruption to favor his presidential candidacy. And it seems that these people have already begun to become inconvenient for Assemblyman Cha. What will happen? In the year 2023, the Hyundo group experienced a turbulent phase, with cases of systemic corruption within the group, resulting in the arrests of leaders and loss in value. But in 2024, as indicated in Chapter 32, the Hyundo group managed to recover thanks to Lee Myung-jun efforts. After the tragic end of Lee Hyena, the quintet of bullies was taken to trial thanks to her English diary, which served as evidence for the prosecution in the trial. After the trial, each member had a different fate. Chapter 2 and 15 indicate the schools that will make up the arcs of Plaything. Yujin and Yejin enrolled at Unro High School. Ah-hyun returned to Busan and enrolled at Dosu Commercial High School. Bae Doa transferred to Gwangju and enrolled at Dolart Specialized High School. And Cha Seohyun went abroad, returning to Korea that year. She is probably living in Incheon and enrolled at Gwakro Sports Specialized High School. In Chapter 11, shortly after Karma enrolled at Unro High School, she begins acts of violence against the Song siblings, which results in the first contact between Song Jin-tak and Lee Myung-jun recounted in the story. The context of this encounter was the compensation for damages caused to Yujin and Jin Woo-song by Karma. Jin-taek was determined to make the case public and sue Lee Myung, but Lee Myung's plan was more cunning. The strategy would be to offer a large compensation to the Songs. Then, they would lower their guard for the next steps of the revenge plan, as well as build a relationship with Lee Myung. These compensations included penthouse space in an upscale neighborhood, money, and financial support for the Song's business expansion. The continuation of Song Jin-taek's subplot occurs in chapters 31 and 32. Lee Myung-jun invites the Songs to Thailand for a business meeting. Lee Myung begins the second part of the plan to eliminate the Songs by announcing the cancellation of the Hyundo group's support for the expansion of the Songs' business. Lee Myung then says that he would make up for that failure. His second proposal would offer a contract to provide resources directly to a Hyundo group subsidiary in Thailand. In addition to financial support for Jintaek to produce the products sold, instead of just reselling them. Being a merchant, this proposal was very tempting. A guaranteed demand for the products produced is any merchant's dream. Obviously, there was a catch in this tempting proposal. Creating a production factory would require 20 billion won, about the $13.5 million. Lee Myung would cover half of this amount with his own resources, and Song would mortgage the apartment he had previously received from Lee Myung himself and supplement the other half of the costs with his own personal resources. Finally, Lee Myung pressured for the contract signing. Song thinks that because Lee Myung was contributing 50% of the necessary capital, he would be sharing the risks with him. Or perhaps the contract was an attempt to establish an alliance against a future confront against Assemblyman Cha. Thus, Jintaek accepts the proposal. The only suspicious detail was the anti-corruption clause, which was more severe than usual. It stipulated a fine of 200% of the invested amount if Lee Myung's invested funding was used for other purposes. Finally, Song Jin-taek signs the contract, and Lee Myung's face makes it clear who that contract had benefited. Song Jin-taek's karma begins as soon as the Songs return from Thailand in Chapter 36. In the following chapter, upon arriving home, Jin-taek finds Yujin trying to scribble on her wrists. He then hears about the personality erasure plan that Karma had executed earlier. He finally realizes that it was all still the revenge plan for Hyena and decides to retaliate. Before leaving, he commands Park Yoon-hae and Yujin to check on Jinwoo at the hospital. Song Jin-taek was heading to the HBS media building. The plan was to use Bae Doa's grandmother's influence to create the narrative of attacks against the Song's children, a narrative that would publicly destroy Lee Myung's image. However, a truck suddenly hits Jintaek's car. Song Jin-taek's fate was sealed as he is captured by Chief Baek's team, and he is taken to the decisive meeting with Lee Myung-jun. Lee Myung begins to reveal his plan against Song Jin-taek, starting with his cell phone. The screen showed a zero account balance instead of the investments for the business in Thailand. The narrative would be that Jin-taek had withdrawn all that money to invest in cryptocurrencies. In reality, all that movement is a fraud set up by Chief Baek's team, who hacked the cell phone and made the transactions in Jin-taek's name. This money would buy cryptocurrencies from a fraudulent company, and, after a money laundering process, it would return to its original owner, Lee Myung. But the main points that remained were two. First, that Song Jin-tak would be publicly seen as someone who diverts money from businesses to cryptocurrency investments. And second, according to the anti-corruption clause of the contract signed the previous day, the amount to be returned to Lee Myung would be 20 billion, and this amount would be inherited by Jin-taek's children, since Lee Myung and his team were going to end the lives of Song's parents that day. Desperate, Jin-taek pleads for clemency, asking why Lee Myung was personally invested in him when both Assemblyman Cha and Director Han committed even more cruel acts in the crimes against Lee Hyena. The answer was because Jin-taek personally made Hyena appear as a prostitute in court and in public, using Assemblyman Cha's connections to manipulate the trial, freeing his son Jin-woo from all the heaviest accusations of the sexual crimes committed. Finally, Lee Myung personally ends Song Jin-taek's life and concludes the entire elaborate plan of destruction. And so, Song Jin-taek and Park Yoon-hae ended as collateral damage in a larger plot. In Chapter 41, Chief Baek and Lee Myung-jun analyze the situation from now on. They comment that the families of the three bullies were still unaware of the events in Unro, in particular the Chas, where Chief Baek has an enigmatic statement regarding Cha Seo-yun. Lee Myung is satisfied with Chief Baek's speech. He interpreted that enigmatic statement as proof of Cha Seo-hyun's arrogance, and that it is for that very reason that she is a predictable piece in Lee Myung's plans. Lee Myung concludes with another enigmatic statement. While Assemblyman Cha is the ultimate target, he is also seen as a public enemy. Chief Baek interpreted Lee Myung's statement as proof that Lee Myung did not expect to return alive from the conflict against the Chas. All the actions Lee Myung had taken up to that point, and would take going forward, indicated a man who had detached himself from life and was living solely for the taste of sadism and revenge. Next, Karma proceeds with the Last Supper plan, ending Yejin's life. 4 days later in Chapter 44, Moon Peter's fate is revealed. It takes place in his hospital. At this moment, there is a large protest occurring in the vicinity. This protest calls for Moon Peter's resignation from the hospital's leadership due to the corruption cases leaked the previous day. The leaked documents indicated that Director Moon Peter colluded with Assemblyman Jong Young-taek from the ruling party to pressure the local government into changing the purpose of 4 sites to medical facilities, which would generate an increase in property value and the distribution of this appreciation among those involved. At this moment, Moon Peter and Im Yoon-jung are inside Peter's office, observing the situation outside while mourning Yejin's death days before. The situation seems irreversible for the couple. Im Yoon-jung is convinced that the culprit behind the attack is Lee Myung. Moon Peter, however, strangely refutes this accusation. Im Yoon says that both Yejin's death and the timing of the corruption leakage appear to be a coordinated maneuver to bring down Moon Peter. Finally, Im Yoon decides on separation, leaving the place and Moon Peter. While Moon Peter was still trying to bargain through his situation, with the death of his beloved daughter and the situation with the hospital, a mysterious woman enters his office. This surprised Moon Peter, who had ordered that no one from outside enter the building, but the mysterious woman claims that she was not from outside. Her reasons for being there become clear to Peter. That woman was an envoy of Assemblyman Cha to carry out the crime cover-up and ensure the occultation of the truth, that the real mastermind of that corruption case was Assemblyman Cha, and that Moon Peter and Assemblyman Jong were just scapegoats. Moon Peter then decides to end that episode himself, but asks a question: whom would that woman serve? To the Assemblyman Cha, or perhaps she is Cha Seo-hyun's direct subordinate? This allegation manages to elicit a reaction from the woman who seemed neutral until then. Moon Peter then leaves the office with a final plea that his ex-wife be spared by the people who would be carrying out that cover-up. After all, apparently, Im Yoon didn't know anything. And from the top of the building, dramatically, Moon Peter ends his life. Let's jump to Chapter 75 and see Im Yoon-jung's fate. Despite Moon Peter's pleas, it was all in vain. We see Im Yoon trapped in a water tank at the Dosu port at the mercy of the Shaft gang. Kang Tae-han makes it clear. She was there on the orders of the Chaz, and the order was to eliminate Im Yoon. Im Yoon would be eliminated because it wasn't clear whether or not she knew about the Chaz dirty secrets, and it wouldn't be worth finding out anyway, since she had no value to the Chaz. Eliminating Im Yoon, regardless of whether she was a risk or not, was the easiest course of action, and with that, Yejin's relatives were eliminated, as were Yoojin's relatives. However, before finishing this episode, let's talk about the other 2 names involved in Cha's gang, mentioned in Part 1. The first is Assemblyman Jong, who was an accomplice in the corruption case along with Moon Peter. Assemblyman Jong wasn't involved in Lee Hyena's death, but Kang Muhan in Chapter 76 revealed his fate. Jong had a suspicious death. While he was supposedly visiting his father's grave, bees attacked him, and he died of asphyxiation. CEO Shin, who managed JJ Island along with Song Jin-taek, accidentally tripped while fishing for leisure and ended up dying there. We will discuss more on those events in part 3. For now, what matters is that the fates of Cha Kanghyun's 4 direct henchmen were sealed, under the guilt of having executed the crimes conceived by the assemblyman, and being too inconvenient to remain alive, threatening Cha's future plans. Directly or indirectly, the 4 were eliminated. And with that, we conclude part 2 of the Plaything miniseries Hidden Plot, which focused mainly on the events of Season 1, plus some spoilers revealed only in Season 2. Next week, we'll recap what we have so far of the behind-the-scenes plots of Season 2. Unlike the Season 1 where the focus was mainly on Yoojin and Yejin, the plot involving Ayun is important, yes, but the plot involving the Kang siblings and the by-election share the center of the stage with her, and that's it. Before finishing, have my shameless self-promotion, but a bit faster today. If you want to see my other Plaything videos, check out my playlist here. If you want to check out my other recap channel, watch this video where I present which stories I covered in April. So that's it, folks. Bye.